Hi, here we are again. Today I'm going to talk about our domain D of working on how to work with students and also know what they need and then be able to modify the curriculum around that. And so one thing that I have worked upon that is I really struggle with some of my students having to do SIPs over and over again. They definitely struggle with some visual processing, some auditory processing, and ability to attend to their job and be able to retain the information. So I really try to change it up a little bit. So one thing in my classroom is when we talk about vowels, I do have the vowels. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but up on my board up here, the vowels are actually highlighted. So if you forget, you can always go back up and look at the vowels. They know that that's kind of one of our rules. Yes, we didn't have school part of the week last week because we have huge fires and we didn't come to school on Friday. So that put a little damper on my progress reports. Anyways, so another thing we do is we roll a dice, or the kids pick a stick and they get to pick a vowel. So one thing that we have done in the recent past is they pick a vowel and they pick a consonant. And I really let them be kind of the leader in this. And then they get to pick popsicle sticks out of a jar and they get to pick a consonant. So the whole joy of this is then as we're making some very real words, we are also making nonsense words. And so they think it's funny, they giggle a lot, and but they also are working on those sounding that out. Prior lessons, I have taught them to make sure that they know the difference between the front sound, middle sound, and ending sound. So this is a lesson that would be taught after that with a lot of my kids, or a lesson with my older kids that would just need a refresher to remember that, this is an I, not an I. So, and then sometimes when they're even more into it, we do go into our consonant blends. And one thing I like to do, Dr. Seuss and I are friends, or at least I think we are. I either take a book of his, like the Foot Book or something like that, or a very, very old, lovely book that was gifted to me by my mother. I have a pile of these, and it's very old curriculum, but it is phonics practice reading. And after we talk about what A says ah, is we read it as a group. And then also the students then get a photocopy of it and they highlight where the A says ah. And I have several different stories where we have I love these old things. They're so amazing. We have so we go through that, and I just am pulling different things out of a curriculum. It's curriculum based, but it's also fun because it has new and different books that they see, and it's not the same book over and over again, because many times it's hard for them to attend, and many times their behavior is such that you have to keep them on their toes and give them something new, or they get really cranky and they just don't want to work for you. I also do pull things out of Teachers Pay Teachers. Love the place. It's awesome. And also out of some other websites, but that we do talk about what A said, or all the vowels, and then start with those beginning SIP sounds of SH and CH and TCH and CK. So one thing that works really well, because some of my students struggle with reading, and it is a battle to know if they can retain or be patient enough to sound the words out. So I bring pictures into it a lot of times. And it and you have to change it up. You have to keep it real. So this is something that I found in the last year. I love it. ST says st. And then we talk about what the pictures are and how what of those pictures says st. And I bring out a bingo dauber because that makes it super fun. And they get to use the bingo dauber. I find that they need the repetition, but they're because of their behavior and their inability to retain, and then their inability to attend to tasks, finds it that you do always have to find new things to do. So with that, I use lots of popsicle sticks, writing sounds, writing letters. I make dice, paper dice. I'm sure I have some of those back here. It's all pretty close to where I'm at all times. Only, what happened to my paper dice? I must have loaned them to somebody. You have to, if they aren't picking it up and they aren't into what you're teaching them right then, you might as well just start over and find something else. I mean, it just becomes a point where you might have a small group of 5 to 7 or only 3. But if you've got a couple of those kids that are not entertained or not completely bought into the lesson, you have to change it up. You have to make it different for them. And it just is huge to always know your students and see those triggers. If you start to see them lose interest, they're not going to remember what you're teaching. If they're capable of just laying their head down or maybe sitting quietly, yes, they will be observing and taking it in. But once their behavior starts to impede their ability to sit there and be quiet, or they're not messing with their neighbor, it's important to change it up and make it a little more obtainable for them. I'm grateful that most of my groups are broken into similar abilities. A couple of my kids in one of my reading groups are definitely could be higher than the other 2, but they don't, their inability to keep their behavior in check and their inability to attend keeps them at a lower level. Then really, if they weren't challenged with those things, they would take off. It would be amazing. So that is what I like to do. We play games. We play Kaboom with popsicle sticks, with sight words. We play around the world. I roll dice with letters, with the vowels on them, and we make words, and it goes around the table, and people have to fill those in on their paper. So a lot of times, honestly, yeah, I have lesson plans, but if those aren't working, you try something else, and you got to be able to think fast and help them look at it. That's kind of one of those things that I love, being able to have copies of things like this. It seems simple and silly, but they read the book, they read it again, they're able to highlight it. Even if they go back over and highlight it again, almost like we're rainbow writing with our highlighters, they're really able to pull those words out. And Dr. Seuss has so many different rhyming stories and things like that. I do use a lot of his stories where kids can then use different vowel blends and different at different levels of that phonetic learning. These new worksheets are super awesome because not only do they have them on the front phonetic blends, but they also have them for vowel blends, and they have them for the ending blends also. So the digraphs and things like that. So I think that's all. I just love to try and make it fun every day and not be monotonous and mind-blowing. These little cards are cards I made that we play Go Fish. And it also is very good to play games because it helps them socially. I make them sit up in their seat and ask me, Mrs. B, do you have? And then when you say it back, when you ask them, hey, John, do you have? I expect them to say, look me in the eye and say, no, go fish. So we're really practicing those social skills too. Hope you're having a great night. Happy Thanksgiving. Bye.